Yo! Knifedope. More dope. Come and get your fix. What's up, fuckers? Your boy's back with a fresh batch of dope. Knifedope. That's right, people. The hits don't stop. Got a video I'm doing for y'all today that I've been teasing for quite a while. This video is going to be on finger-safe locking mechanisms. And as I was prepping for this video, it quickly dawned on me just how many finger-safe locking mechanisms I have in the collection. To be exact, I managed to come up with 11 different knives using different finger-safe locking systems. Now, the criteria for this list was very simple. The locking mechanism had to be finger-safe, basically meaning your fingers had to be free from the path of that blade upon disengagement. So based on that criteria, let's get to the dope. All right. Now, no matter how much I love this goddamn knife, you will not be finding it on the list. And that's because it utilizes a frame lock. Therefore, your finger is always at jeopardy of being cut. And as you can see, it's happened quite a bit to me. So number one on the list is this one. This is the Riot EXO Mini. Now, some people may try to give me a little bit of pushback on this, but I say, fuck it, push. Your finger is never in trouble or never in the path of that blade. Riot uses some type of a slide lock. Very, not high tech by any means, but it works fantastic. This is, these two pieces make up your handle. This portion, this lower portion, is the one that actually houses the blade. And on that portion of the handle, there's a cutout. Now, when the handle is closed, that cutout falls right in line with this slide tab. And so therefore, when you slide it, it closes it and keeps it in the lock position. And when you disengage it, it allows you to deploy the knife, close the handle again, push that lock in the lock position. Blade is not going anywhere. When it's time to disengage it, same thing. All the meanwhile, your fingers are safe. That is the Riot EXO M. Okay, this next one. Get ready, fuckers. It's an OTF from Kershaw. We're talking about the live wire, baby. Live and direct. Now, I don't have much information for you guys as far as the internals of this goes, mainly because I didn't want to take it apart. But I did do a little bit of research. The way these OTFs work, this is a double action OTF, so therefore you've got spring tension on the retraction as well as spring tension on your deployment. And that is, alternating tension. So you've got tension, which is going to propel the knife forward, and then tension, which allows it to come back. Now, when the knife is in the open position, we've got two gates. Think of them as liners, essentially. And you've got basically what happens is the spring tension is on opposite sides of the gates. And therefore, when the knife is in the open position, that spring tension is preventing the knife from coming back to the house. And when the knife is in the closed position, it prevents the knife from accidentally being discharged. All the meanwhile, you're using this slide here to propel the knife and to retract it. All the meanwhile, maintaining finger-safe operation. And that's knife number 2, the OTF by Kershaw. Okay, now we start getting to the nitty-gritty. Number 3 is the access lock. Now we refer to it as the crossbar lock, as the patent has expired. It was created by Benchmade in 1998. It was actually developed by two gentlemen by the name of Bill McHenry and James Williams. And the way this crossbar lock works is you got a steel bar, which is your crossbar. That steel bar passes through slots which are cut into the handle and the liners, and it passes through both. Now, the bar itself, and I'm going to use this Kaiser as a visual aid. The bar itself is attached to 2 omega springs, one on each side. Now, what these omega springs do is they provide equal tension to both sides of that bar. So as you open the knife, that spring tension will pull the bar back. And when you reach the open position, you see that notch in the tang of the blade, it thrusts that bar into that notch. Therefore, it also lines up with that lock pin, or rather your stop pin, makes contact, and that increases your reliability of the locking mechanism. Super solid lockup, super fidgety as a fuck. Even though Benchmade was the inventor of the crossbar lock, companies like Kaiser have just innovated on that. They now allow us to change the actual tension of the spring, which gives us a better synthetic detent feel, better action, and I think even better lockup. So that was number 3, the Access / crossbar lock. Okay, number 4. This locking mechanism is most likely the most popular, and that is the button lock, otherwise known as the plunge lock. Every company is making their own version of the button lock. Some of them are doing it great, like CJRB. Some of them not so great, and I won't get into all that. But the way this works is there is a plunger, and I got a plunger here to show you guys. Stand by. There's a plunger that is utilizing, as I drop the fucking plunger, there is a plunger that has a spring in the back end of it, like this. So this is your plunger. So the front side of the plunger is the actual button. You got a spring which mounts in the back side of that plunger. And the way this works is that spring is being pushed against the lock side in this case, or rather the clip side in this case, that's scale. And as the knife is opened, there is also a notch in the tang of the blade, and it rides that tang until it gets to that notch. Spring tension pushes that plunger forward, and it engages into that notch on the tang of the blade. Now, what companies have started to do, initially when they invented this button lock, it used to be like a round hole, and the plunger would just sit into the round hole. But in doing that, there wasn't much of that opening detent sensation we crave. So what they've started to do is they've actually started to make that cutout more of a ramp shape. And therefore, what that does is that gives us that opening detent sensation we so crave. Now, I know a lot of people complain about this not being a strong locking system. They're incorrect in that. This is a strong locking system. Not the strongest by any means, but it does provide, when it's done right and executed right, it does give us a solid lockup. Super fidgety as a fuck. All the meanwhile, keeping those fantastic fingers of mine out the path of that blade. That was number 4, the button lock. Okay, let's get to some goddamn Spyderco, shall we? Spyderco's got a couple on this list. The first one is going to be the ball bearing lock. Now, the ball bearing lock is exclusive to the Manix 2 in the Spyderco lineup. This locking system was actually invented by Sal Glesser, and it was refined by Eric Glesser. It's basically a simplified take on the crossbar lock, to be honest with you. And the way this one works, and I got a little diagram here for you, or a little visual aid. We've got a ball cage, which houses this hardened stainless steel ball bearing. Now, you can, nowadays they even have it to where you can change out that ball bearing. They've even got them in ceramic or whatnot. But it comes with a hardened stainless steel ball bearing. And the way this works, once again, we've got a notch in the blade. And as that blade, in the tang of the blade, as the blade opens, this spring is providing tension to push this ball cage with that housed ball bearing forward. And when it reaches that notch, it goes ahead and it jams this ball bearing. As I drop the fucking thing, it goes ahead and pushes this ball bearing into the tang of the blade. I'm taking this fucking thing off. Oh my God, what the fuck? It pushes that ball bearing into that notch on the blade, ensuring you a solid lockup. When it comes time to disengage, you just pull back on the ball cage and allow the blade to come back. Super fidgety as a fuck, super finger safe. That was the Manix 2 utilizing the ball bearing lock. Okay, number 6, another Spyderco lock. This one is possibly the most popular one at this time because we see it on tons of models. This is the compression lock. Now, the compression lock was developed and patented by Spyderco in 2000-2001. It was actually first used on their Gunting model. Now, essentially, it's an inverted liner lock, just only improved. It uses a split liner, very similar to a liner lock. And what ends up happening is, as you open the knife, that split liner springs into action, and it actually engages on the spine of the blade, on the tang, and it wedges itself between that stop pin or that lock pin and the tang of the blade, or rather the spine of the blade, ensuring a super solid lockup. And also, when it comes time to deploy it, or rather retract it, all you do is they have the little tab here which accesses that liner. you pull down, and therefore it pulls the liner back, clearing that blade from that locking position, and also ensuring that your fingers are safe. That is the compression lock. All right, next up, number 7. This is a offering coming to us from Mr. Tan Snacks, and it is the Super Lock. I've also heard it referred to as the Snack Locks. Now, when Mr. Tan, or rather Mr. Snacks, invented this, he took some of the same principles that are found in the Triad Lock. Now, you won't see the Triad Lock on this list because it is not, quote unquote, a finger safe lock. But the way this one works is we've got this lock bar, which has basically been integrated into the back spring, or rather the back spacer. And we've got a coil spring once again. This coil spring is housed right here in the heel. You can see a little piece of it right there. And what that's doing is that's actually pushing, giving us tension, pushing this lock bar into a notch on the blade, and also wedging itself behind that lock pin. Solid lockup, plenty of finger access, finger safe, and one of my favorite locking systems. This is the Super Lock. All right, this next one is another one of my favorites. I got a lot of favorites, fuckers. This is coming to us from Cold Steel, and this one is called the Atlas Lock. Now, the knife model that you see here is called the Engage. This is basically a slide action actuated lock, but one of the strongest there is in the market for sure. This has actually got dual stop pins, or dual locking pins. And this slide bar right here, think about it like a fork. The tip of it is like a fork. And it's also got spring tension in here, which is pushing that slide forward. As you open the knife, it's pushing that lock bar into a cutout in the tang of the blade. And what ends up happening is that fork, like I told you, goes ahead and it goes over both of these stop pins. And what that does is that essentially exposes each stop pin to half of the total force. So basically it's splitting that load bearing force between the two stop pins. So we've got a solid lockup. Also finger safe once again, because when it's time to retract the blade, all you got to do is pull back on that slide. And yeah, that is the Atlas Lock from Cold Steel. This next one, I don't got much information on because I have yet to disassemble it, but it's very similar to what we just saw. This is the Ram Lock. Think about this almost as a crossbar lock. We've got except we're not using Omega springs, they're using a coil spring once again. That coil spring is based on this, or rather based at the slide itself. It's actually housed here, or held here, anchored here, I should say, by this screw in the body. It's a circle, the screw goes through that, so therefore it holds the slide in place. Meanwhile, the spring tension is pushing against that. We've got a cutout in the tang of the blade. So when the lock is riding that tang, it gets thrust into the lock position. It's held in place by both scales of the handle, therefore allowing solid lockup. And when it comes time to disengage, you just pull back on it, reminiscent of the crossbar lock, and it comes right back to the house. Now, recently there was an individual who put up a video talking about the lock failure of the Ram Lock. So when I saw this video, I had to give it a try. No problems with mine. I think, if anything, some of the issues were in the earlier releases from the MSI. I think Microtech quickly realized that, made the adjustments necessary, and I don't foresee any issues with my stitch. But yeah, this is the Ram Lock from Microtech, another finger safe locking mechanism. Okay, these last two are by far my favorites. We're going to number 10, which is coming to us from the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Andrew Demko. Now, this one is the Shark Lock, and this one is one of my favorites, hands down. The way this one works is it's actually a spine-situated locking system. It is operated with a ramp-like fin, hence the word Shark Lock. And what ends up happening with this one, we've actually got a coil spring which is housed between these two lock pins right here. And as the knife is open, this ramp-like structure moves back and then is thrust forward between that lock pin and the cutout on the spine of the blade, or rather the tang of the spine. And it ensures solid lockup. When it's time to disengage it, you just pull back on that ramp and it comes right back to the house, all the while keeping your fingers safe. Now, one of the more important features of this Shark Lock is the range of motion. This slide actually goes forward and back while also managing to go up and down. And what that does is that actually allows for greater size blade tang engagement area. So in other words, it's creating more contact surface on the tang of that blade. So therefore we've got stronger lockup, super fidgety. I love this fucking thing. And that is the Shark Lock from Demko. All right, this last one is my favorite. Y'all have heard me talk about it quite a bit. This is the Cold Steel AD15. Once again, another locking system created by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Andrew Demko. This is called the Scorpion Lock. Now, this was actually designed to be a standalone locking system, and they wanted to make it be able to function with one hand, which it totally can. Once again, we've got a coil spring here. This one is actually it's actually housed like this up and down. And so what's happening is that's putting that spring tension on this lock arm. Okay, and then we've got a lock pin here in the lock arm that rides the tang of the blade all the way till we get to that cutout, and then it just, whoop, you hear that? Fucking listen to that lockup. And then one of the more important features on this is that this locking system also allows for additional security when you're using the knife in a full grip, because when you're using it in a full grip, you're actually making this lock stronger. Now, I don't know why we don't see this locking system on more knives. I don't care at this point. I just really wish that we were able to have more knives with this locking system. I think by far it is the best locking system there is. Nobody can make me feel any different. I love the lock. Love everything Andrew Demko does. I'm a big fan. Well, there we have it, people. All my finger-safe locking knives or locking systems in my collection. I came up with 11 of them. But I'm sure there's more out there. So if you've got something you want to recommend to me, please tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear it. You know, one thing that I think we all fail to realize is that the innovation in the knife community continues to impress daily. You know, we've got new locking systems coming daily. Perfect case in point is that new locking system from Golden Designs. They went ahead and they actually made a button actuated frame lock. I mean, brilliant, you know, absolutely brilliant. So people's imagination are allowing them to make fantastic innovation, and I'm all for it. But more importantly, what do you fuckers think? Tell me all about it. Love you, mean it. Until the next time, cut something, cut someone, just don't cut yourself. Stay dangerous, fuckers!